Hayato was a Giga Chad who pretended to be a spineless loser, but everything changed after he clapped the council president, and all the girls started thirsting for his sword. It all started on the Hayato was brought to a floating academy called the Little Garden. As soon as he got out of the plane, a banner was rolled out, and two girls started calling out to him as they could already sense his aura. He escaped the girls and made it to the opening ceremony venue, where other students were waiting outside. When he tried to ask for directions, they all swarmed him and started begging for autographs. He managed to escape the stampede and hid behind the building to catch his breath. But then, he got ambushed by a white-haired creep. Emil said he was also a new student and offered to be his tour guide. Inside, Ricci apologized for trying to grab his sausage, and Fritz patted her head to remind her that she was too short to worry about bowing. When Emil suddenly started trying to rub his arm off, Risha and Fritz thought they were a rainbow couple. Moments later, Erica and Liddy started off the ceremony in the hall before introducing President Claire. Just then, No and Lou came inside and apologized for being late, claiming they were out looking for Hayato. After Liddy told them he had been inside the whole time, Claire told them to pack their and take the next flight back to Loserville. Hayato tried to speak up, but Emil was already on his feet, telling Claire to stop abusing her power as the president. After Hayato asked her to reconsider, she gave them all a speech about the importance of being obedient slaves that obeyed her every command. Emil kept roasting her, so Liddy reminded them that Claire was the queen of the academy, and he clapped back by revealing that Hayato had a higher 100 compatibility score than her. After Hayato held him back, Claire asked that he was also against her decision, and he explained that the girls were innocent before asking her to spare them. Liddy tried to roast him, but then Claire stopped her and challenged Hayato to a duel that would determine the fate of Emil and the girls. Before he could even think, Emil accepted on his behalf and was somehow sure that Hayato would win. After the ceremony, Hayato was with Emil, trying to figure out how he could prepare in less than a day. But Emil was a step ahead and said they were going to see the Academy's main researcher of the 100. Char was a nerd who had all her good genes sent to her brain cells instead of her legs, and after she greeted him, Maggie started sniffing and gladly offered to clean up his sword. After Emil nearly ruined her facelet, she showed them Liza, a cousin to ChatGPT, that served as the Academy's AI, and brought out Hayato's 100. She then pulled up a clip as she explained that the 100 was what slayers trained in the Academy used to take down the monsters known as Savages. After showing him a clip of Claire's 100, she turned to ask if he had the brain capacity to understand that he was cooked. After getting the 100 from her, he and Emil got changed and went to the Coliseum to try it out. Hayato was trying to pay attention to Emil's instructions, but for some reason, he thought Hayato was staring at his pre-serum Steve Rogers physique. After he absorbed the 100 and activated his suit, Emil revealed that he already had his 100 as well and activated it. Hayato was shocked by Emil's 100, and he explained that it was an innocence type. But when Hayato started asking more questions, he answered by demonstrating its firepower. Hayato blocked the first blast, and Emil complemented his defense. But after he charged up for the second blast, Hayato's 100 activated its high-speed features and slammed him into the wall to dodge the blast. Seeing that, Emil was sure he could win and powered up to finish their training. On the way back that evening, Hayato saw the messages his sister had been leaving and told Emil he only came to the academy on the condition that she would get the best healthcare before running off. At the hospital moments later, he apologized to Karen and gave her a kiss on the head to make her forget that she was upset. The next moment, they heard the door open, and two gravity-defying melons that blew a fuse in Hayato's mind walked in. Minoru wanted to tell them visiting hours were over, and Karen had to snap him out of his already intense obsession with her mega melons. He got to his dorm room later on and opened the door just as Emil was about to get dressed. Emil then tossed everything he could until a box nearly cracked Hayato's spine. After waking up on Emil's thighs and jamming skulls, Hayato asked why he was in the room and learned that the creepy femboy was his roommate. Emil then asked for his torn-up jacket so he could fix it up, but as he started sewing, he pricked his finger. Seeing the blood triggered a bad memory from Hayato's past, and his next move was to clean up the wound with his mouth juices, while Emil wondered what else he could clean up. After covering it up, Hayato explained that he got mixed up in a savage attack once and mastered his mouth skills ever since then to help injured people. The next day at the Coliseum, Claire asked to be sure he was okay with getting his ass whooped before they both activated their 100s for the duel. While No and Lou were hoping he could save them from getting expelled, Liddy started listing out the rules of the match and gave them 15 minutes to land the winning knockout. Claire also felt that it was necessary to let everyone know that she wasn't going to be using full-body armament, an ability used by a select few that allows them to push their hundreds to the absolute limit. After basically saying that she would go easy on him, Emil showed up to offer him support during the game, and Erica tried to stop it. But Claire also felt that he would need the extra assist and permitted it. The instant the timer ran out, Hayato's super speed sent him crashing into Claire before she could even flinch. After the dust settled, he used the opportunity to see if the monstrosities on her chest were real. She tried to hide her obvious craving for it and told him to get off, but a slight twitch from his hand made her happy noises slip out. He immediately apologized for losing control over his arm, but she was already fired up and started blasting. Before he could dodge one of the blasts, she was already inches from his face and used a nasty uppercut to oven-bake his digestive system. Emil helped him activate his shield just in time to block another blast. Hayato then charged in with his sword to land a hit, but she easily caught it with her bare hands and made him take a couple hundred steps back for safety. After charging up his sword, he took flight to gain enough distance for an energy blast that was guaranteed to smoke Claire. She blocked it and complimented his skills before sending her weapon to blast him out of the sky. After the dust settled, they all thought he was done, but then got back up, so Claire switched to a buster cannon. As she started charging up, Emil sensed the danger he was in and told him to move, but something was going on with Hayato that made him deaf to Emil's warnings. Right as the blast went off, his eyes changed, and he dodged right at the last moment before cutting the buster cannon in half and forcing Claire into defense as he kept trying to cut her down. Once she got some distance, she activated the cannon again and smoked him, but then he activated the full-body armament. Liddy was struggling to understand how he could use it despite just getting his 100, but Claire didn't have time to figure it out as he blasted her rice cakes into the dirt. As he charged in for the finishing move, she saw her life flashing and decided to activate her full-body armament. He immediately attacked again, so she deployed mini-missiles that cut through his barrier and left him open as she went beast mode with the buster cannon and smoked him with a blast that cut through the upper atmosphere. After he fell, Emil rushed to help him and reminded Claire of how she ran her mouth about going easy on him. Char then came out and explained that the official rules of the duel canceled it out, which meant Claire still won. Claire then refused to take the win, so they settled on it being a tie. Later that day, Hayato woke up in the infirmary and saw Claire, so he asked about Emil and the girls, but she had already canceled their expulsion. He didn't remember much of what happened, so she reminded him while asking about how he could use such powers in his first official duel. Emil came in and stopped her from interrogating him, so she left, and Emil checked to be sure he was okay. On the way home, Erica noticed Claire's mood swing and asked if she was thinking about his hand on her melons. She tried to deny the obvious, but even Liddy could sense it and suggested a massage to get her mind off it. The next day, Emil treated Hayato like he was a new hatchling before asking if he wanted to visit the Academy's business district and getting excited after he agreed to it. At Central shortly after, Hayato started getting uncomfortable seeing all the attention they were getting, and Emil made it worse as he made him lose aura points by feeding him. Emil then took him to a lover's park, and while he was showing him around, Hayato could feel the rainbow fever taking over and shook it off. Just then, he got a call from Karen, who had just heard about the duel and wanted to see him. After he told her where they were, she got there shortly after and met Emil. She had to check to be sure he was a boy and proceeded to explain that Hayato was a dump truck enthusiast, not a sword jerker. After having a talk with Emil to be sure of his intentions, they watched a performance from Sakura, an idol she was obsessed with. Hayato then promised to take her to one of the concerts, and they kept strolling through the district before eventually going to the cafeteria to get food. Emil was trying to win her over with food when Claire showed up with her girls, and Karen immediately started roasting her spring extensions. When she demanded to know who the disabled loudmouth was, a fun-sized otaku told her who she was and introduced himself as Chris, Claire's personal assistant. Claire then asked Hayato for his help with the council, and Emil jumped to his defense and reminded them that they couldn't force him into anything. The girls then explained that it was optional, and Claire said she wanted him to join the selection, a special force under the council where he would be taking orders from Warslawn HQ and get to join real missions to take on savages. Liddy explained that their latest mission against savages had left them without enough slayers, which was why they were asking him. Emil demanded to be added with him, but they told him he was too skinny to make it in an actual fight. He then tried to challenge Claire, and Liddy tried to get him to chill out, but then he challenged her instead and activated his 100. Liddy also actually activated hers, and Erica tried to stop her, but she was hell-bent on putting Emil in his place. Hayato told Emil it was dangerous to use his blasters with Karen around, so he changed his 100 to match Karen's, which came as a surprise to the girls. As they started fighting, Claire stopped Erica from interfering so they could see if Emil had that dog in him. Just as the fight started getting good, an alert came in, so Liddy stopped fighting him, and they explained that a savage had shown up on the island Sakura was meant to perform on that evening. Just then, Char showed up and told Claire to take the boys so they could get their first taste of combat with the savages. After getting to the control room, Mehdi told them they were dealing with 3 of the savage beasts before telling Chris to get to work. Hayato thought they were forcing Chris into an unpaid internship, so Char explained that he was their top analyst with an IQ level that made Einstein look dumb. After Chris pulled up footage of a Trenta-class savage, Claire told Char that the plan to bring Hayato and Emil on the mission was a bad idea. She decided to personally oversee efforts to keep the attack contained until reinforcements could arrive from HQ, and started leaving with Erica and Liddy. Hayato stopped Claire and reminded her of the speech she gave them earlier before telling them about the savage incident from his past that gave him amnesia. Claire still didn't like the idea, so Char told them it was actually Liza that recommended taking Hayato and Emil along for the mission. Hearing that, she decided to let them join the mission, so they all got on a plane to the island, and Erica explained the mission plan. Emil wanted to know why they weren't heading out with them, so Claire explained that they were to watch them take out the first one to avoid getting their brain cells spilled on the first mission. Once they got in the island's airspace, Erica jumped out and took out the savage's vision before Claire and Liddy joined her and activated their 100s. After Erica held it in place, Claire used the buster cannon to expose the monster's core, and Liddy used her drill to blow it up. Claire then told Emil and Hayato to wait for landing before getting started, but Emil was a sucker for getting an adrenaline rush and told Hayato to jump out. Before Hayato could think, he pushed him off the plane, and they both activated their 100s in midair. They replicated what the girls did, but Hayato could break into its core after the first hit. After Emil saved him from the savage's attack, he tried again, but still couldn't cut through and got tossed to the ground. Emil then used an arrow from his 100 to land a hit on the core and blew the creature up. By then, Erica had tied up the Trenta class and gave Liddy an opening, but then the creature slapped her out of the air before using Erica's chains to slam her into a roof. Seeing the girls halfway to the other side, Hayato and Emil wanted to help, but Claire stopped them so she could redeem their dignity as council members on her own. After activating the full-body armament, she charged up the buster cannon for a blast, but the savage came ready with a throat blaster and canceled out her attack. She tried using it again, but the cannon was out of juice from the duel with Hayato and left her open to another blast from the savage. Thankfully, Hayato activated his armament in time and saved her like a true Giga Chad, but she started getting hot as his hand was on her melons again. When he landed on a roof, the savage started charging up again, so he tried to dodge. But then Erica saw an airport in line with the blast and told them there were still people trying to evacuate from there. As the creature blasted, Claire used a barrier to block it before telling him to combine his powers with hers to counter the blast. After they redirected the blasts, he put her down and helped her stay up as her energy reserves had been depleted. But Emilia interrupted their romance to remind them of the still raging monster he was fighting alone. He tried to protect Liddy from an attack by setting up a barrier, but the creature cut through it and opened up his mini melons. Seeing his scar, some of Hayato's memories suddenly came rushing in, and he remembered that Emil was Emilia, the girl from his past. He saved her and told her to get Liddy, but then he got smashed into the building. Before the savage could take out Emilia, its arm got cut off as Hayato had entered beast mode again. Emilia tried to stop him from going crazy, but he had already crossed that line and started trying to cut through the beast until it pushed him back. He charged up his sword for a plasma blast, but it scraped off the monster's shoulder and got deflected to Erica. Claire saved her from the blast, but while Erica was feeling her love zones tingling, Hayato was going off the deep end. The next moment, Emilia locked lips with him and kissed him back to sanity before telling him to focus on attacking the core. As the creature started charging up again, Hayato turned his sword into a plasma energy mega katana and sliced the beast in half before deactivating the full armament and falling into Emilia's arms. Claire then showed up and demanded an explanation for Emilia's sudden transformation before they got on the plane back to the academy. Hayato met up with Karen after getting back to tell her about everything and gave her the regular kiss before getting back to his dorm room to talk with Emilia. She told him about the event from his past, where she got attacked and infected by the Savage virus, and he tried to suck it out, which then made him infected as well. Although most people could never recover from it, those like him who were called variants and had incredibly high 100 compatibility scores. Emilia told him she had been working with Char to track him down ever since the event, and faked being a boy when she enrolled so they could be in the same room. He then asked about the gaps in his memory, and she explained that it was a side effect of the virus taking over whenever his life was in danger. When she started thanking him for saving her back then, he got up to hide his wood, and she tried to follow him. But then he collapsed and held her mini melons for support. Seeing that it was probably an effect of the virus's activation, she started using her mouth juices to make it better. After she explained that she was basically giving him an antivirus, they were about to continue. But then Claire came in to remind Emilia of the orders for her to stay in another room and found her straddling his glizzy. Hayato got up to explain, but he tripped over Emilia and somehow ended up kissing Claire while manhandling her melons. After moving away and apologizing, she couldn't bring herself to scold him anymore, and Emilia demanded to know why. She then crawled over to Hayato to get another kiss and ended up in an argument over kissing rights that woke up the whole dorm. Later that night, Sakura was having a shower while her manager made a call to the academy for some special arrangements ahead of her next concert. In the training arena the weeks later, Hayato and Emilia were sparring against Risha and Fritz. After one of Fritz's blasts gave them an opening, Hayato charged in for a surprise attack, but Fritz was waiting with an arm cannon. The Dangers started activating Hayato's curse, but he had started gaining control over it, and used it at the last moment to blast Fritz into the wall. After he admitted defeat, Hayato took a deep breath to get the curse under control, and the girls were going crazy watching him. After Emilia ran over to commend him on gaining control over the curse, Fritz and Risha expressed their disappointment in still not being good enough to join selections. They were trying to get them to see the brighter side when Erica interrupted to tell Hayato to report to Claire's office. In the office moments later, she told him Sakura had personally requested for him to be her bodyguard for her performance on the island that weekend. Erica then told him the Savages were likely still around and pulled up a clip to show that they had only defeated 3 out of 7 that had crashed in. Acknowledging the danger the other 4 could pose to the island, he accepted the mission and made a special request. Karen was practicing her readings later on when he showed up and had to tell her to keep it down as the news got her overexcited. She was happy for him and wished she could also see Sakura, so he told her they had also made special arrangements for her to go to the concert. Hearing that, she decided that Claire had passed the vibe check, but then she told him to avoid women as her fortune-telling skills predicted a bad experience with them. That weekend, he woke up to Emilia on his bed again, and she immediately tried to schedule a date, hoping he was free that morning. Unfortunately, he had to break her heart as the mission was scheduled for that morning, so she pouted for a bit and wished him luck. Later on, he was with Liddy at the airport, getting the final instructions and making sure his equipment was working properly before Sakura's plane landed. After greeting each other, they went through the airport where her adoring fans were causing a stampede just to see her. In the car shortly after, she caught him staring and asked if he was also a fan of her music, but he explained that he mostly listened to Drake. He tried telling her about Karen, but he ended up speaking gibberish and made her laugh while Liddy could see his aura points vanishing. After getting to the hotel, he opened the door, and she had to remind him of his job to check and make sure it was safe. He told her it was his first day on the job before making sure the room was clear and helping with her bags while she got comfortable. The next moment, she asked if he wanted to get married and brought out a deleted clip from his savage takedown during the last mission. She had apparently been obsessed with him after seeing his strength, which was why she put in the request for him to be her bodyguard. Her request for marriage shocked him, and she could sense that there were other hoes on his mind, so she gave him the full picture. They would basically become a power couple that takes over the world and vanishes to spend the rest of their days in wealthy isolation. He kept trying to talk to her, but she was too caught up in explaining her deluded life story until he suddenly accepted everything she said. He then pinned her to the wall and leaned in for a kiss to seal the deal, but she chickened out and ran into the bathroom. He was listening to her voice shortly after when she asked him to get her a recorder to save her new bars. He was trying to clean up after her when she came out to ask for the recorder and gave him a little peek at her goods. She tried to go back, but then she tripped on the soap, and he immediately ran in to make sure she hadn't smashed her skull. After seeing her lathered up plot, he fought off his demons as he handed the recorder over and went to get his charged sword under control. Moments later, she came out and told him to rate her outfit, but after he rated them, with absolutely no trace of risk, she told him to work on his game. He spent the rest of the day watching her be a star, and at the end, he complimented her on being so demure with the way she handled the events. After checking with Sofel to be sure she didn't have anything else scheduled, she told her to show him the concert grounds. She got there shortly after and tried to talk to him, but her plot had deep fried his brain cells and affected his ability to speak properly. She then made him watch as she activated her 100 and took off. Just then, Char showed up with Mei and explained that they were called to help as Sakura was going to be performing with her 100. She explained that Sakura had the ability to create a space where she could make illusions while flying around and singing. Sofel then told him that Char had actually saved Sakura's life in the past, but she played it off as a regular day at the job. When she got back down and asked for his thoughts, his brain cells were functional enough for him to give her a proper compliment. Before sundown, he called Claire to tell her he was clocking out until noon the next day, and she asked him to meet her the next morning. After getting back to the dorm and seeing no one, he decided to hop in the bath, but then he saw Amelia and tried to leave. She asked to share it, so he got in and turned his back to hide his brick. Hearing that he was on a first-name basis with Sakura, she made him give her a special name and told him to look at her scar. While she was explaining how it was almost fully healed, his eyes were on other things, so she turned them away like she didn't want him to look in the first place. When he asked her to hang out with him on the island after his meeting with Claire, she got excited and ended up pushing him into the water, where his hands found their way to her melons again. While Sakura was saying a prayer for her concert later that night, a group of variants took out a savage while making plans of their own for the concert. The next day, Sakura had turned her room into an inspirational dumpster and was reminiscing on the early years of learning music with her mom. Hayato was at Claire's summer house that morning, trying to keep his demons at bay while Erika applied sunscreen on her body. Seeing his struggles, Claire decided to give him a peek and didn't hear Erika telling her that her melons were open until it was too late, as he had already seen every inch of her gravity-defying milkers. As she screamed in embarrassment, Liddy hopped out of the pool and ran over to beat the memories of Claire's melons out of Hayato's head. After she tripped, she was trying to find him, but then Claire pointed him out, and she realized that he had been sniffing her sacred spot. She popped his balls as punishment, and by the time Chris got there, Hayato was halfway to the spirit realm. Moments later, Claire told him about the theft of 100 stones Sakura had planned to use during the last concert. It happened during the Savage attack, but they had just gotten the intel, so she told him to keep an eye out as the stones were very valuable, which meant the culprits were probably planning to strike again. With official business out of the way, Claire told him of something more important that needed his urgent attention and demanded a swim race as Chris brought out the Speedo they had prepared especially for him. Moments later, Claire was on a floaty trying to find him and realized that he had escaped. He was in the business district waiting for Amelia, who showed up moments later and told him to treat her like a girl, since they were far enough from the academy to keep her secret. After he complimented her outfit, she thanked him and took him to get a change of clothes. He then joined her to shop for necklaces and got her one she claimed was proof of his ownership over her. He was about to head out when he saw Fritz with Riesha, so they hid in a dressing room to protect Amelia's cross-dressing secret. She started getting a little too comfortable with him being so close to her and wanted to get down to business, so he reminded her of the jail term for public indecency. They were at a park shortly after, and he was trying to catch his breath, so Emilia left to get drinks. He then got a call from Claire, who wanted to tell him about Sakura's sudden disappearance from the room. She had left Sufel a letter, but with the savages still likely on the loose, they needed to find her quickly, so she told him to get ready for any sudden calls for his deployment. She had also been spying on him with the camera and demanded to be taken on a shopping date as well. After he accepted, she could barely hide her excitement, but when Chris showed up, she reset her tone to default and told him to stay ready. He had just hung up and was thinking about Sakura when she snatched the phone and said she had been looking for him. After explaining that she had put a GPS tracker in his phone, they left, and Emilia got back seconds ago with the drinks. He was already in the car by then and shot her a text explaining things before taking the phone from Sakura to tell Sofel not to worry. Claire heard about it moments later and started realizing that she had to do more than jiggle her melons to make Hayato hers. Sakura took Hayato to the island's Grand Canyon and told him it was because she had childhood memories of it with her mom. She thanked him for saving the island again, and they spent the rest of the morning talking about her childhood memories, all looking over at the canyon. When he mentioned Karen's name during the conversation, she got shocked and asked if they were the siblings at a shelter during the second savage attack. She sang for them back then, and although she didn't remember his name, his compliment on her singing was what made her focus on becoming an idol. She then told him that her estranged father took her away shortly after that, but she fell ill and lost her voice due to an infection from an unknown virus, like Karen. Her then dad sold her off to a Warsland research facility. There, she and some other kids were injected with an antivirus made from savage fluids under the orders of Viali, the lab's director. While she got better and regained her voice, most of the kids weren't so lucky. Those like her who survived then became lab rats and kept taking injections as Viali aimed to artificially create slayers. Most of the kids started becoming unstable, but then she realized that her voice calmed them and used it to help them. Despite that, all the kids slowly succumbed to the infection until Sofal found her one day and took her away. Hearing that, he explained that he was also a variant like her, and she started piecing together the details of their extremely traumatic childhood to make it sound like they were soulmates. The stories gave her inspiration for a Taylor Swift-type album, so she told him to grab the bags, and they got on a bus to head back. After sunset, they were still on the road, and she wanted to tell him something, but then the bus crashed and a savage appeared. It used a blast to topple the bus and got ready to send the lovebirds to the afterlife. Moments later, Hayato was battling the savage on his own while Sakura and the other passengers watched from a safe distance. By then, Claire and the girls had gotten to the control room, where Chris briefed them on the situation and put out a request for nearby slayers to head to Hayato's location. Hayato managed to block the monster's attacks, but its strength forced him back. As it started powering up its mouth cannon, he got ready to take it, but then Sakura ran in and activated her hunter to block the blast. With that, he powered up his sword and charged in to attack the monster's core, forcing his blade into its skull until the core exploded. After the savage fell, Sakura pounced on him and started professing her love again while the passengers watched. The next moment, a bigger savage showed up and started powering up for a blast. Sakura activated the shield again, but the blast was too strong and pushed her back into his arms. Before it could attack again, it took a missile to the face, and Hayato saw Fritz, who had shown up with Risha to give him backup. After her attack took out the monster's legs, its arm got sliced off by Emilia, who had also shown up to help. Before he could finish thanking her, she got in between him and Sakura, and said they should focus on fighting. The savage started getting back up, so Risha charged in for another sonic punch that pushed it back enough for Emilia to take out the second arm and leave it open to a missile blast to the face from Fritz. Risha tried using a drop kick to pop its core, but she couldn't get through, so Emilia tried using her arrow, but the savage blocked it and finished regenerating its arms. After Emilia had explained its abilities to Hayato, she got ready to take out its arms again and told Hayato to get ready for the final blow. He checked with Sakura to be sure she would be okay on her own, and almost got his head chopped off by Emilia, who was growing suspicious of his relationship with her. Fritz interrupted the interrogation to remind them of the regenerating death machine they had to fight and ran in to start the second attack. After Risha used a nasty uppercut to pop its jaw, Emilia took out its arms again, and Hayato jumped in to finish it off, but he got slapped out of the air. Before they could make sense of its regeneration speed, it powered up for a blast, but when Sakura told it to stop, it reacted to her voice. Hayato used the opening to charge in for another attempt, but then one of the variants from the previous night showed up and kicked him into a wall. Sakura was trying to wake him up when another variant showed up and scanned his sword before creating a replica. As the savage shot out an energy blast, Mr. Chainsaw Tooth deflected it, and the third variant blocked it from hitting the civilians before the second broke into its core and used a command to blow it up. When Neset kept spilling the savage's fluids, Risha told her to stop and ran in to stop her, but she got knocked out by a death frisbee. Fritz tried to smoke her with a missile blast, but he also got dropped, so Emilia powered up to handle business and Hayato charged in to block Krovan's attack. He remembered what Claire said about the thieves from the last concert, but before he could ask, Krovan powered up and tripled his speed for an even stronger attack that pushed Hayato into the ground. Emilia got distracted and got one of her blades tossed away, but before Krovan could pop her, she changed the blade to a blaster and smoked him before sending another shot to Krovan. After he blocked it, Ness finished getting the Savage's core and sensed reinforcements coming, so she tossed half of it to Crovan, and he said something about Viali before they left. Moments later, the rescue team arrived, and shortly after, they went to see Claire and the others, who explained that Crovan's squad was a Slayers unit working for an illegal organization to gather Savage cores. Char then explained that the cores had the same molecular structure as the stones used to activate their 100. Claire was against telling them about it, but Char had already spilled all the tea and finished explaining that the Savage cores were capable of tripling a country's forces, which was why poachers like Crovan's squad were being sent out to get them. With that said, Hayato wanted to know how Fritz got there with Risha, and Emilia told him she was the one who summoned him after getting the request for backup. Claire was also against deploying regular students, but because they both made it out with their organs intact, she decided to consider their application to join the selections. Later, Hayato left with Emilia while Sakura was at the concert venue with Sofel after the last rehearsal. Hayato was with Karen shortly after getting cheerleader lessons ahead of the concert, when he got a text from Sakura and went to meet with her on the beach. After he told her about Karen's addiction to her songs, she told him that her fans weren't actually into her singing on its own. A lot of people were infected with the Savage virus, and that made it easy for her to connect with their hearts as a variant, so she always thought they only loved her, because she was low-key brainwashing them into liking her music. He tried to make her feel better about being a brain-hacking Taylor Swift, but she reminded him about the Savage's reaction to her voice, which reminded her of the truth. He then used the time from their past when he complimented her voice before she became a variant to make her feel better, and she promised to give her all at the concert. The next night, she used her 100 to put on the greatest show her fans had ever seen, and Karen couldn't get enough of it. She then sang the song from that day at the shelter, and Karen remembered who she was while Sofel and Char watched like starstruck teenagers. Folks from across the world, as well as Claire and the girls, watched her performance, and even Liza fell in love with her voice as she finally embraced her powers and gave them all a show to remember. The next day, they were all at the airport watching as she signed an autograph for Karen while talking about that day and promised each other to sing together one day. Sofel spoke to Char about Sakura's abilities, and she promised to look into it. She then said goodbye to Hayato and pulled him in for a kiss that shocked the rest of them before she got on the plane and promised to come back soon. Days later, Hayato woke up in his bed and found her sitting on his sword. After pushing back to figure out why she was back already, Claire showed up and demanded answers, so she clung to him for safety right before Emilia also walked in and ended up trying to rip his arm off, and they all fought for a piece of his magnum sausage. Weeks later, Hayato was on a beach away from the academy with the gang. Sakura showed up and asked for his thoughts on her swimsuit, but his focus was mostly on Noharu, who came to watch over Karen with her gravity-defying mommy milkers. Sakura pulled back his attention by pressing his arm in between her average-sized milk jugs, and Emilia, who barely had any melons to show, tried to stop her. After giving Emilia a job she could do to make up for her lack of estrogen, Sakura dragged him into the water to play while Emilia watched and cursed her mom for passing down the wrong genes. Claire was relaxing under a shade with the girls when Emilia saw her mega melons hanging out and accused her of trying to mess with Hayato's head. While the others enjoyed the water, Sakura decided to get lunch prepped and gave him a good look at her cakes after she got out. She was with Emilia moments later, explaining how she had joined the academy to become Hayato's bride. When Emilia vowed to stop her, Sakura demanded to know why she was obsessed with Hayato despite being a boy. Emilia was still keeping her real identity a secret from all of them and said they were simply childhood friends. They then started an argument over which relationship had more importance until Karen used the sister card to dominate the challenge. After they all ate lunch, Fritz imprinted the image of his mini pecker in a Speedo while inviting them for a volleyball match. Risha started the game, but her service almost blew off Hayato's sausage, and Emilia was immediately pissed at her for trying to take away the glizzy she had been trying to gobble up. While they started using their powers to play, Erica was about to have the time of her life with Claire's drumsticks and rice cakes. After Liddy grabbed it and started oiling up Claire's drumsticks, Erica tried to out-rub her until Claire told them to stop. She was trying to wrap her melons up when Hayato crashed into her while trying to catch the ball. For some reason, he couldn't get his face out of her melons and kept struggling until a chopper from Warslarn HQ dropped in. The blonde Prince Charming that stole your ex came out, and they realized that he was Judar, Claire's older brother and the CEO of Warslarn. After complimenting her swimsuit, he introduced himself to Hayato before saying something about him possessing the divine blood. He also commended the others on the recent missions and wished them luck before taking Claire with him back to the academy. Days later, Hayato was walking with Emilia when they got a message from Claire and went to the council office, where she explained that an anti-Savage team was being put together, and they were to join the team. Fritz and Riesha were confused as to why they were also called, so she told them their request to join selections had been accepted, and they were also going to join the mission. They had just left the office and were discussing a training session when Juder asked Hayato for a moment of his time. On the elevator ride down, he asked if Hayato knew about the Academy's power source, and he said it was a reactor, but Juder said that was only a cover-up story. After getting to the secret floor, Juder explained that the Academy required more energy than a reactor could give before he entered a password, and opened a room where he saw a glowing cocoon. When he got closer and realized that there was a girl inside, Juder explained that she was the one powering the entire academy and was actually Liza, the first man-made slayer and variant. The next bombshell he dropped was that Liza was actually he and Claire's little sister. Just then, Claire showed up and pointed a Glock at his face while demanding to know why he brought Hayato to see Liza. He said Hayato had a potential of becoming one of Warsland's top slayers, and as such, he deserved to know the truth about Liza. He also told them about the divine blood he spoke of on the beach, which he claimed would be the answer to waking Liza up. After teasing the idea of him possibly having to kiss her out of her deep sleep, he told him to try releasing some of his energy into the cocoon, and although it made it glow, the release wasn't enough to wake her up. Juder told them about Viali, the leader of the illegal hunter organization he'd apparently had history with and was planning to capture. Claire tried to ask him more about it, but then he changed the topic and suggested bringing Hayato over to the family house for dinner so they could discuss marriage plans between him and Claire. After he left, they had a very awkward elevator ride back up, and she told him to keep everything they had shown him a secret before leaving. On a plane shortly after, they were briefed on the mission with a map showing signs of activity of 50 savages near the city Lou was born. Claire told them to expect Krovan's crew, and explained that Juder was behind them getting assigned to the mission since they had fought Krovan before. After getting to the base, they were trying to enter the camp when someone ambushed Emilia and assaulted her with a hug while calling her princess and trying to rip off her clothes. After pulling her to the side, Hayato tried to talk to Claudia, but she told him to shut his patriarchal facehole so she could talk to Emilia. Emilia then told her to try again, so she formally introduced herself as a childhood friend of hers from Gutenberg and left him hanging as she immediately got back to talking with Emilia. When she kept calling her princess, Hayato asked her about it, and she finally revealed the secret she had been keeping from him. Emilia lied about her last name when they first met to hide the fact that she was actually the third princess of Gutenberg. After she apologized for lying to him, Claudia asked when she planned to return home, and she said she was never planning to return to life as royalty. Daily near-death experiences while trying to be the top Hayato's harem made a lot more sense to her, and Claudia experienced true terror for the first time as she heard the explanation. After she ran to Hayato, Claudia went off the rails and decided to challenge Hayato to a duel over Emilia. He thought she was capping, but moments later, he was in a dojo with a wooden sword while she was holding a chain mace with nothing but bloodlust in her eyes. Once they had finished discussing the rules, Emilia wished him luck, and the dojo attendant signaled the start. After he blocked her first hit, she was trying to get Emilia to watch her, but after seeing her hyping him up instead, she decided to get serious and kept trying to take his head off while verbally assaulting him at the same time. She then took a step back and started whipping out tornadoes to affect his vision while he focused on his chakra. Once the mace came through the tornadoes, he chopped it off and sent it flying into her skull. The dojo attendant gave him the win, and Emilia hugged him excitedly, but then Claudia got back up and kept trying to get seconds until Emilia told her she was never going back to Gutenberg. After another tear-filled crash out, she swore to take revenge on Hayato and ran off. Later that night, Hayato was walking through town with Emilia, talking about her being a princess, while Krovan and his crew stalked them. The next day, they got the last briefing on the mission and team assignments. Emilia wasn't too thrilled to have Claudia on the same team, but she was excited to continue trying to get her back to Gutenberg, and challenged Hayato to another contest of skill on the battlefield. Sensing her attachment issues, Claire had to explain that being an obsessed psycho could ruin their mission, and offered her a handshake to be sure she still had enough brain cells left to understand what she was saying. After Fritz came with the girls to see if he could get more ladies on his squad, Lou told them the choppers had been fired up, and Claire thanked her for the support. Moments later, they were in the woods, where Claire got the mission started by smoking the first savage they saw. Hayato and Emilia wanted to take out the second one, but Claudia charged in and activated her 100 before using the mace to expose its core and rearrange its guts. She then gave Emilia the opening to use her axe to blow out its core. After it fell, Claudia pounced on Emilia before explaining that she was better than Hayato, and Erica did a quick scan that showed there were no slayers in the area except the two they had taken down. While Claire was discussing switching locations, Hayato was sneaking a peek and Krovan's squad was on higher ground, watching them. On the other side of the woods, Risha was popping heads with Ally while Fritz watched like a proud hairmoner. Later on, Hayato's squad was back at the campsite, and Claudia started making him out to be the deadweight so Emilia would stop being obsessed. After Hayato accepted being a deadweight to let them enjoy the spotlight, Emilia found a new reason to love him even more, and Claudia told him to stop the Sigma talk. Erica then told them to expect rainfall in the night, and Claire expected it to be a small drizzle. So when nightfall came, she discussed the new team splits to alternate resting hours. Emilia tried to get with Hayato, but she immediately separated them, and Claudia explained that it was a bad idea for him to be left alone with any girl before grabbing Emilia. Emilia ended up with Erica while Hayato was with Claire and Claudia, trying to get some shut-eye. When he started staring at her mouth, she sensed his cultured thoughts and told him to keep his hands in the futon so he wouldn't try anything creepy while she slept. Hours later, the light rain shower had stopped, and Erica was giving them an estimate on the savages they still had to stop. Claire then switched out with them, so Erica dragged Emilia in for their rest while Hayato went to stargaze with Claire and talked about their sisters. Claudia interrupted their chat to ask if they needed privacy to take their discussion to the next level before saying she had seen something in the woods. She offered to hang back so they could clap each other if the mood was right, and Claire tried to hide her obvious craving for some Hayato meat. After they left, Krovan activated a signal jammer right before Claire and Hayato found a savage. She tried to tell Claudia but couldn't get through, so they decided to handle it on their own. Claire blasted with her 100 before activating the buster cannon as she charged in. After she slipped and got her vanilla buns in a puddle, the savage tried to rip out her insides, but Hayato got to it first. Moments later, she was walking through the woods with her buns, looking like they had been dipped in chocolate, while she thanked him and decided to go wash off in the lake. Emilia was freaking out back at the campsite, so Claudia called her out and said Hayato was on a date with Claire to make matters worse. At the lake, Claire had turned a simple wash into a skinny dipping session, and Hayato was fighting hard to keep his demons in check. While Claire was explaining how good her melons felt in the water, Claudia was telling Emilia to go back home with her, but she still refused and told her she was ready to go to war for Hayato's magnum. Back at the lake, the duo had advanced to a deep conversation about the effect of Hayato's variant powers, and Claire got emotional as she remembered that Liza had the same issue. Liza was injected with savage fluids before she was even born, and their mother was the psychopath that suggested the experiment to make them into weapons. One day in the past, Claire got trapped during a fight with a savage, but before it could get her, Liza released an insane energy blast to save her and ended up in a comatose state. Claire told him she had become a tool to Jude her ever since, which was why she had become captain of the academy to protect Liza. After the story, she asked if he thought less of her for doing too much all the time when all she really wanted was to protect Liza. He then told her he only joined the academy for Karen and was going to keep fighting to get her treated, and Claire started thinking about having a workout with him in the water. After she got up, an emergency call came in, and he was trying to answer it when she ran up and crashed into him. His hand ended up on her melons, and he gave it a little squeeze before a brief moment of silence until her brain cells reactivated, and she jumped off him. After handing over her suit, he stepped aside to take the call and heard that a group of hunters was taking out their squads. Claire suspected that it was Krovan's squad, and then they saw a signal flare from Fritz, so she told him to head back to camp while she planned to go help Fritz's squad. After Fritz told Nekri reinforcements were coming, she knocked him out while Krovan told Liddy to stand down. She refused, so Krovan activated the variant mode and took her down. But he couldn't land the final blow. A plasma beam from Erica stopped him. She apologized to Liddy for being late before she passed out and gave Krovan a deal guaranteeing his squad's safety in exchange for information on Viali. Nekri tried to attack her, so she gave her a taste of true power and offered them another chance to take the deal. Just then, it started to rain again, and he told the girls their good luck charms were working. Ness had activated her cyborg eyes, and used the weapons they created to blow up Claire's cannons, but she had 2 left and blasted Crovan. He survived the blasts and said the rain had made Claire's blasts weak, so she tried to use her buster cannon, but he was too fast and knocked her down before she could blast him. Just as he was about to land the final blow, he got pushed back and wrapped up by Erika's chains. Hayato and the girls had also shown up and captured Nesat and Nakri, so Claire found her balls again and told them to surrender. Crovan then told her to kiss his chocolate buns and broke out of the chains before the girls also got free. Nesat immediately duplicated Claire's cannons and blasted Claudia, while Crovan tried to take out Claire again and ended up in a battle of testosterone against Hayato. Nakri tried to pop Emilia, but she used her blades to pin her to the rock and told her to surrender. Nakri said she would rather get unalived, so Emilia dropped the weapons and used an uppercut to literally blow her back out. Nesat took over with her cannon blasters, but Emilia easily dodged the shots before smashing the cannons and causing them to blow up in her face. Nesat tried to use her powers again, so Emilia threatened to pluck out the eyeball and started playing good cop by telling her to use her eyes to watch any Ender recaps. Hearing her Lady of Justice speech, Crovan got pissed and tried to take his anger out on Hayato, but he barely landed any hits as Hayato's defense was impenetrable. As he started going off the deep end while attacking, Hayato started seeing memories from his past. Crovan and the girls were slaves in a mine years ago, until the day they decided to escape together. They were barely making it through the desert when Nesat tripped and got something lodged into her eye. Shortly after that, they met a Viali who offered to restore her eyesight with a special power from savage fluids she said would give them freedom. Hayato then tried to talk him down and started charging up as he also remembered his life and the people he was fighting for. He activated his full-body armament and used its power to blast Crovan with a plasma slice, but he blocked the damage and charged in to counter. Another slice from Hayato did the trick and sent him crashing down, but he still got back up and started charging up with all the variant power he had left. After attacking Hayato and getting pushed back again, he puked up some of his insides, and Claire told him to chill out. The next moment, they heard a sound and saw a savage come out of the water before it sprouted wings and charged up for a mouth cannon blast to one of the squad's campsites. After it started charging up again, Claire was trying to figure out the next move when she saw a bag of hundreds Crovan had tossed to her and listened to his proposal for a truce. In exchange, he wanted to take out the savage so they could get its core. He started powering up and got closer to full insanity before he blasted off. Once he struck the savage's barrier, they realized that it was too strong for a single fighter and tried telling him to stop. But he was too far gone to even hear them and kept trying to cut into the barrier while ranting about how the core could finally set them free. Eventually, the creature pushed him back and used its mouth cannon to blast him away. Thankfully, Hayato was fast enough to catch him as he was about to become one with nature. He didn't expect to be saved, so Hayato told him about his mission to make the world into one big unicorn tea party and unintentionally rizzed up Nesat. Crovan then asked for his help protecting his girls right before the savage started charging up again. Claire used her buster cannon and got help from the others, but they couldn't break past the barrier, so Erika suggested a combined attack with all the slayers in the area. With their comms still jammed, they asked Crovan to shut down the jammer as that was the only way they could pull it off, so Nesat deactivated it. After Erika connected with other slayers, Claire asked to be patched in with Char so they could calculate the blast force needed to break through the barrier. Once she got it, Claire notified all the other slayers and told them to get into position while Hayato was to land the final strike. Once they all started charging up, the savage did the same and let out a blast right before they all shot it with theirs. They couldn't break through the barrier, and Char explained that some of the slayers were smoked right before the shot, so they no longer had enough firepower. Claire thought they had no option left, but then Char gave them an alternative from Liza that involved Hayato's mouth juices. Realizing that they were suggesting a kiss between them for Hayato to give Claire some of his variant powers, Emilia made her opposition very clear. Hayato could barely hold eye contact with her, so Claire told him to pull up his big boy pants, and they stepped aside for the kiss-induced power exchange. Once she felt his powers inside her, Claire gave the rest of them the heads up to start charging up again as the creature also started preparing another blast. This time, they got the first hit, and Claire used her powers to triple her cannon's blast strength until it broke through the barrier. Hayato immediately took over and powered up before charging up his full-body armament. As the creature started blasting him, He could feel himself losing control and fought back with all he could until he got close enough to charge up his sword before cutting into the savage's head and destroying the core. After both he and the savage fell into the lake, Emilia dove in after him and saw him right before he got to the Mariana Trench. He had passed out and clearly needed oxygen, but Emilia came up with the brilliant idea of snagging a kiss for herself while his brain cells were getting waterlogged. At sunset, the injured slayers were recovering while Claire was with Erica, who wanted to know why Judah wanted Krovan and his girls to be brought back to the academy with them. Later on, at the academy's hospital, Char told Emilia that Hayato would wake up eventually before leaving, and Emilia tried to talk to him before leaning in for another kiss. The next moment, Karen and Sakura came in and wanted to know what she was doing as she was still faking being a boy. She told them there was a bug on his face, and Karen believed her, but Sakura's brain cells had matured enough for her to smell a lie. Just then, Hayato woke up and saved her from any further interrogation. Meanwhile, Viali had just realized that Krovan and the girls they were not coming back, so she decided to begin her plans. Back at the woods the previous evening, Ally got her mini cakes tossed across the floor, and her woke wizard partner tried to defend her. She had just realized that the savage didn't have a core when she got hit by sonic waves and was knocked out by Viali. At Claire's office later on, Emilia wanted to give her some of the snacks she got on the way back, but Char was inhaling them like a vacuum cleaner. Hayato then asked about Krovan's crew, and Claire told them they were chilling in an underground facility under surveillance. She then told them that they had found Viali's lab, but she had already left the location when the troops got there. Char told them her efforts to analyze the data they found in the lab were futile, as most of the important data had already been erased. Claire then told them about the upcoming Academy Festival, where they plan to have slayers from several global branches as security to avoid any surprises from Viali. Sakura revealed that she was going to be performing at the festival and had a special surprise planned for Hayato. Erica then gave them the details of the preparations being made and told them to watch out for the cleaning robots littering the hallways. At the runway, shortly after that, they went to welcome Claudia, who immediately jumped off and tried to kiss Emilia until she almost ripped her face in half. Wendy came out after her and met up with Fritz and Risha, who were wondering what happened to Ally. She said she had not seen her since the mission, so they offered to assist with anything she needed. While the students spent the rest of the day setting up for the festival, Hayato and the other slayers got their assignments from Claire. That evening, he had just checked into the hospital when he saw Sakura and followed her until she entered Karen's room. When he got there, he saw an entire studio set up in her room and found out that Karen was going to be singing at the festival. That was the surprise Sakura was talking about, but he was worried about her health affecting it. She then showed him a 100 called the Divine card that Sakura explained would help her move freely without her Charles Xavier wheelchair. He was shocked hearing that she could use a 100, so Char explained that they had been conducting tests and realized that she had a good enough compatibility score. After Sakura told him about the amount of work they had been putting in, Karen started getting cold feet, so he gave her a pep talk to hype her up, and Sakura chased him out so they could continue practicing. The next day, Claire announced the start of the festival, and while the students and locals swarmed in to start having fun, Claudia was at the runway going nuts as she had to stay there throughout the whole event as security. Maggie's Mega Melons made it hard for Krovan to hear what she was saying about the festival food before she left. He was getting bored of being locked away from civilization, but Nakri was starting to get pissed and started saying the slayers were trying to trick them by taking their hundreds. He accepted her point, but he also reminded her that they left Neset's 100 in, so she wouldn't have to see out of just one eye, while also being as weak as Sakura. Hayato and Emilia were on their break later on, and he was trying to get her to stop being clingy when they heard someone calling them and started freaking out. It was Risha and Erica dressed like corn hub maids for their festival cafe. Erica tried to explain the outfit to them, but Emilia snuck a picture to make sure she could never beat the allegations and took a few more as she tried to grab the phone. After a small army of maids welcomed them in, Emilia noticed his cultured staring and wished she could have also worn a maid's outfit. Erica then offered to make her wish come true and handed her over to the girls for a makeover. Hayato reminded Erica of the need to keep Emilia's true identity a secret, but then Erica started talking crazy as she explained that it was her way of having revenge. The next moment, they brought Emilia back in the new outfit, and Erica immediately started fondling the fake melons she said they added to the costume. All of a sudden, they'd all started chanting for him to grab the melons, and he eventually agreed, thinking he'd only feel whatever they stuffed in. When his lack of balls made the whole thing take a bit too long, they pushed him, and he crashed into her. After he gave the melon a quick squeeze and heard her making happy noises, she told him that everything he was holding was real. Just then, they got covered in flashes, and Erica and the rest of the girls took pictures of them to share with the school's TMZ. For some reason, Emilia wasn't opposed to the idea of their love story taking over the academy and started trying to get a kiss to make the story even more legit. He tried getting help from Erica, but she had already switched to work mode and left with Riesha. Juder got to the festival later on, and while the festival goers were flocking to the concert venue, Hayato went to see Karen. He complimented her outfit and made her shy, so she made him give her a kiss, but then Sakura came in with Sofel, so he stopped to protect his aura points. After they explained the routine for the performance again to make sure she was ready, Juder came in to give his good wishes to Sakura, before also telling Karen to break whatever was left of her legs. Moments later, Sakura kicked off the concert and started with a performance that took over the entire festival. While that was happening, Wendy swapped places with the guy at the entry point to let Viali in and helped her gain access into the facility before she used her aura to put her to sleep. Back at the concert, Sakura finished the first song and told them a little about Karen's influence in her career before bringing her out on stage. Karen initially fumbled her opening speech and made Hayato wish he could disappear, but with help from Sakura, she calmed her nerves and told them all about her dream to spread love. She then activated her 100 and left Hayato speechless, as it had turned her into a 10/10 baddie with drumsticks, capable of folding every alpha on the planet. While Karen was making every otaku's dream come true, Viali was using her cigarette to mess with an innocent cleaning robot. After the girls gave the fans their money's worth, Claire was at the control room watching with Lizzo, who also enjoyed the show. Just then, Chris told her about a staff member they found unconscious somewhere in the facility. She immediately pulled up footage of the officers, helping Wendy up, and listened as they explained that she had amnesia and couldn't remember anything except for the red savage that didn't have a core. At the festival, nothing had happened yet, and Viali was enjoying the show with a tie wedged in between her monster melons, which would explain why she was so feared. No and Luo had just gotten some break time and wanted to visit the stands, but then they all saw a mechanic bee hovering a couple of feet away from them. Erica and Riesha were hoping it belonged to a creepshow geek, but after not being able to identify an owner, they decided to take care of it themselves. Erica activated her 100 and wrapped it up, but then it blew up. They saw another one heading towards a power station, so Riesha powered up and used her blasting orbs to take it out. The next moment, explosions started going off across the festival, so they told Noel and Lou to get the people to safety. At the control room, Chris and Liddy struggled to get a hold of the situation as several power stations were getting blown up. As they started switching to the emergency power systems, Liddy decided to head out, and Claire started brainstorming possible causes. Just then, Noah and Luo called in to show her a clip of one of the cleaning robots transforming into the exploding bees. She was telling Chris to shut down or destroy whichever one he could still access when Erica called in and showed her 100 stones found at the explosion sites. Seeing them, she started putting two and two together, and Char showed up after also realizing that Viali was likely behind it all. Claire then told Chris to put the festival on hold and issue evacuation orders, as well as a call to the available slayers for mobilization. Back at the concert, Sakura was still entertaining the fans with Karen when Sufel gave her a heads up. Just then, the entire facility began to shake from the blasts, and the people started getting worried, so she promised to help them get to safety and made them stay calm. Back at the control room, Char pulled up security cam footage of the moment Viali got in, and Claire guessed it was because of Krovon's crew, so she requested extra security and asked for Hayato and Emilia. At the festival, Erica, Riesha, and the other slayers took out the bees in their area while evacuating civilians, and Fritz cleared the ones in his with help from Liddy. While that was happening, one of the bees slipped into the Academy's data center and started corrupting the entire network. Meanwhile, at the deck, Claudia was still brooding over not being able to enjoy the festival when she saw an aircraft flying towards them. After it crashed into the deck, Claire wanted to know why the radars were not giving the usual signals, so the cadets in the control room checked and discovered the sections of the network being damaged by the bee in the data center. The next moment, savages started crawling out from the wreckage, and after they got up, Claudia and the others saw that they didn't have a core. After Claire saw them, they activated the deck's deterrent systems, but the bullets had no effect, so Claudia charged in while the other slayers defended from the blasts. Seeing the chaos unfolding, Char realized that the replicants were Viali's creations, and the reason she had been gathering savage cores in 100 stones. Claire immediately called out to Lydia and Erica to give them orders on how to deal with the situation. Hayato and Emilia showed up the next moment, so Claire gave them a quick rundown of the situation and told them to go make sure Crovan's crew didn't fall back into Viali's custody. The next moment, the radar picked up another plane coming from above, and the deterrent system immediately started firing. After a couple of missiles took out its engines, it crashed right on top of the concert, and Sakura started having a hard time keeping the people calm with Karen. As Claire told Hayato and Emilia about the replicants, they came out from the wreckage and started trying to cut into the barrier. The barrier's strength started taking a dive, so Claire decided to head out on her own and told Chris to take care of things, but he stopped her and explained that she was best suited to keeping the Slayers in order from the control room. Hayato decided to go handle it with Emilia, and Liza had the same idea, but she was still skeptical. So Hayato reminded her of the talk they had at the lake, and she agreed. Emilia wanted to know what lake incident they were talking about, so Claire changed the subject and made them promise to return safely, while Char sent out a message for Medi to handle Crovan's crew. At the time, Crovan was feeling the blasts and was curious about the situation, but Nakri was already sure it was Viali. Nezet reminded them that there was a festival going on, and Crovan showed his disappointment in the possibility that it was Viali attacking random civilians for the sake of her mission. Just then, Viali came in after dropping a guard and told them about her plan as she handed over their hundreds. Nezet was excited to get to blasting, but Crovan didn't like what she was doing and told her the Slayers were not as bad as she was making them out to be. Realizing that they were having second thoughts, Viali pulled out a device that scrambled their minds with sonic frequencies. Back outside, Lydia had gotten tired of looking for a core and started smashing through the replicants, while Fritz blasted them back to scraps, and Claudia finally found a way to enjoy the festival. At the concert, Sakura was done giving pep talks and was praying that Hayato would show up. Thankfully, he had already gotten there with Emilia, and while they charged in to stop the replicants, Mei was running to Crovan's crew. After Viali came out and started shooting, she dodged the bullets and kicked the gun away before dropping her. She was trying to check on them when she took a bullet to the shoulder and fell, while Crovan and the girls were already suited up and watched as Viali asked if she was the robot someone named Linus had made. Medi tried to stop Crovan and the girls from leaving, but then he blasted her away, and they started heading out with Viali. After they blasted through the door of the lower level, Char told Claire they were heading to Liza. Just then, Claire got a call from Juder, who then told her to leave Viali to him and promised to handle it before hanging up. Back outside, Hayato and Emilia were struggling to find a way to deal with the replicants. Meanwhile, Nakri had just tripped an electrical trap and got knocked out. Viali told them to abandon her and keep going, but then refused to move, so she used the mind control device to force them. A bullet from Mei's gun took out the remote as she ran to save them while having a shootout with Viali. Somehow, a next-generation military robot missed every single shot, and Viali managed to land one on her thigh before running off. Medi tried to check on Crovan, but he was more concerned about her ruptured wires, so she said she would call for backup. By then, Viali had made it to Liza, but Juder was also right there waiting to see her. She immediately pulled a gun on him and said she had set up the entire attack as revenge against him for dumping her right after sticking his sausage in her vanilla buns. To get started with her revenge plans, she made the replicants activate a sound wave blast that affected Hayato and every other Slayer in the facility. Juder complimented her genius and asked if she wanted to work with him again, but then she got pissed and refused to fall for his risk before shooting at Liza. After emptying the clip and still not penetrating, she got shocked as she realized that Liza was awake. She demanded to know how, so he explained that she had reacted to Sakura's singing and revealed that her little attack was all part of his plan to get Liza to wake up. She thought he was talking out of his ass until he told her she had always been his puppet. She tried to end him in anger, but the bullet was blocked by Liza, so she kept firing, hoping one would pass through until she ran out of bullets. The next moment, her expression changed as Juder had landed his first and only shot, before going to tell her how useful she was to his plan. She tried to ask for one last kiss, but all she got was a look at his perfect jawline before he got up and told Liza she could go back to sleep. Back outside, Emilia had just been knocked out by the replicants, so Hayato took over and kept trying to take them down until he also got tossed like a bag of chips. Sakura and Karen were still struggling with the crippling sound waves when they suddenly heard a voice and saw Liza, who told them they could use their song to cancel the effects of the sound waves. After giving Karen a kiss and telling her she could stand, she left, and they activated their hundreds before starting up the concert and canceling out the sound waves. After they all started getting their strength back, Hayato got back up and charged up before taking off to activate his full-body armament. With all his energy focused on one final attack, he charged in and pressed his sword into the replicant until he cut through its head and passed out while it crashed into the academy. Claire immediately asked for Hayato's stats, so Chris showed him passed out on the barrier, and she thought it was over. But then the sensors started going off, and he told her the replicant was reactivating. It immediately charged up what was left of its head to blast everything in sight. But the blast got scattered into the ocean by Krovan and the girls before the replicant went over the edge. After getting back up and smashing the bridge, it was about to take out Nakri, but Krovan stopped the attack and told Neset to take care of her as he powered up and attacked the replicant. Several attacks later, the replicant released weapons that zapped Krovan until he got tossed aside. Claire immediately ran out to help, but the replicant had already started charging up again, and Neset saw only one way out. She used her skill to replicate its powers and clapped it right as Claire got there. Before the dust settled, she blocked a blast before seeing that Neset had been absorbed by the replicant form she created with her powers. Char contacted Claire and told her that Neset was slowly getting to the point where she could blow up the entire academy. Claire then asked for a way out, and Char said the only way was to enter misery, as she had basically become the replicant's core. Hayato was lost in his mind at the time until he saw Liza and remembered what was happening in the academy. She explained the current situation and told him to save Neset before giving him a kiss to restore his energy. Neset was already reaching the breaking point, so Claire activated the buster cannon to smoke her. But then Hayato stopped her and asked for a chance to save her. Claire granted him a few minutes, so he dropped down and activated his full-body armament before trying to talk to Neset. The moment she recognized his voice and remembered a bit of her past, she started blasting, but he managed to dodge it and kept talking. After dodging the next attack, he got knocked down by a rock and was about to get roasted. But then Emilia blocked the blast and told him to keep trying. Chris told Claire they had only 3 minutes left, so she told him to hurry it up. After he reminded her of Krovan and the freedom they had always wanted, she lost control and started releasing insane amounts of energy. Hayato decided to stop talking and charged in just as she powered up for a blast that he managed to cut through to get to her head. He then broke into her mind to give her another pep talk, and this time, she listened and accepted his help. Once she was back to normal, Emilia hugged him excitedly before Krovan came over with Nakri to thank him, and Claire, who was looking over them, got a hug from Liza before she went back to sleep. That night, the fireworks went off to signal the end of the festival, and Emilia used the opportunity to get the kiss she had been waiting for. After telling him that she always wanted to be with him, he told her he felt the same way and started the kiss for once. Just then, the rest of the group came out to watch the fireworks and couldn't believe their eyes. Sakura immediately demanded answers, but then Claudia ran in and pinned him to the railing before blabbing about Emilia's secret while interrogating him. Seeing that the cat was finally out of the bag, Emilia told them the truth about her identity. The next moment, they all parted like the Red Sea as Claire charged up her buster cannon and told them to continue their love story in the afterlife, before blasting them into the upper atmosphere. Will Hayato end up becoming Emilia's Prince Charming or the harem king of the academy? Also, how on earth did Emilia make her Mega Melons look so small? That is it for this video. Leave a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to the channel for similar content. And as always, thanks for watching.